Hello, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is my April wrap up. So a couple of things. First of all, this lighting, I can't do anything about it. I have run out of daylight, so I have the big light on and I don't know how it's going to turn out on camera, so if it's terrible then I'm sorry. Secondly, my hair, it's really puffy and I can't get it to sort of calm down. Anyway, so April reading. I did such a great job in April, if I do say so myself. I read 14 whole books. I read 3,347 pages. I only bought 4 books for myself and my average rating was 3.21. So that part's not so great, but the rest of it is fantastic. I'm just gonna go through the books in the order that I read them and I'm gonna tell you about them, tell you what I thought of them. I read a mixture of genres and enjoyable books in April. Some of them I loved and some of them I really didn't enjoy. So starting off with the first book that I read in April, and that was the X Hex by Erin Sterling, who everyone knows is Rachel Hawkins. This is a paranormal rom-com. It's a very short book. This is about a main character called Vivian, who is a witch. She recently found out that she was a witch when her mother, I think, passed away, and she found out that they come from a long line of witches. So she moves to this witchy town to live with her aunt and cousin. This town was founded by a group of male witches called the Penhallows. And of course, Vivian gets with one of the descendants. So they have a bit of a fling. This is all happening right at the start of the book, by the way. And they really like each other, but then Reese, the Penhallow guy, tells Vivian that he has to return to Wales to sort out a relationship betrothal that he is in. And Vivian's like, what the heck? You didn't tell me that you were betrothed to anyone. What is going on? And so she puts a hex on him while she is drunk because she and her cousin should not be casting spells when they are drunk. So he comes back to the town 9 years later and things start to go wrong because he is hexed and cursed. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's actually the first book in a companion series, I think. The second book is coming out in the autumn of this year. I've read a lot of books by Rachel Hawkins before, so I kind of knew what to expect from this one. I really enjoyed the romance in this, the couple coming together again after so many years apart and having a sort of hate to love romance again was really fun, and certain parts had me laughing out loud because there's a sex cave at one point, a magical sex cave, which I think tells you all you need to know about the tone of this book. I would recommend it if you want to read a very light rom-com, maybe with a little bit of magic involved, because that's exactly what this one is. I then read the Bone Gap, or just Bone Gap rather, by Laura Ruby. This one is kind of a magical realism story that my friend Nikki actually bought for me, and I'm very grateful, except I didn't like it. So I gave this one 2 stars. It's set in this town called Bone Gap, and a young woman went missing quite recently, and this boy called Finn is the only one who is interested in finding her. He saw what happened to her and he is determined to go and find her because no one else really seems all that bothered that she has disappeared. They're kind of sort of brushing off her disappearance, but he does get the help of a girl called Petey. And that's all I can really tell you about this one because it sort of dragged on and didn't really seem to have a point and I really didn't enjoy it. I'm really sorry. I just found it very boring, and I didn't like the dialogue in this in particular. Whereas the dialogue in the X Hex was really fun and quirky, this was just kind of very bland and there was a lot of it. So I didn't really enjoy this one, like I said, so I'm gonna unhaul it. I gave it 2 stars. Then I redeemed myself by reading The Love Hypothesis, and I've really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars. This has been going around TikTok, BookTube like crazy. So this is I would probably say it's more new adult than new adult rom-com that features a fake dating trope. Everyone loves it. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's not the best written book, and the one sex scene that is in this wasn't great. It wasn't my favorite. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't think it would actually be a spoiler for what I'm about to say. No, maybe that part would. But one thing I did particularly like was that the latter half of the sex scene was quite realistic. I think the author addressed a couple of things that aren't normally mentioned in rom-coms or in films. That was quite refreshing because, yeah, I don't really want to go into too much detail because I don't think you're really here for me to talk about sex scenes in books. But the sex scene was a very strange mixture, and having read and watched some reviews of this book, that is a problem for some people. It didn't really put me off of the book, but I at the same time did not love it. The scene, that is. I actually really enjoyed the relationship in this one. I know that everyone says that it's a very bland relationship because the guy has no personality, and that is true. Yeah, that didn't put me off. I liked the main character enough to want her to follow her dreams and get with this guy. So yeah, it was a good one, really enjoyable. I read it in like 2 sittings, really easy read, and it's definitely what I needed. I then read Shiver, which I gave 3 3 stars. This is an adult thriller book. It's set in France in the Alps. The main character is a snowboarder. She is getting back together with a group of friends who are all snowboarders. She met them while she was in a competition. And back in the day, someone in their friendship group disappeared. And so they're kind of getting back together to commiserate and bring up more secrets from the past. I thought the premise of this one was really good, but what let it down, I thought, was the fact that it kept talking about sports, and I really don't like sports in my books. So I didn't really enjoy this one, and I'm quite sad about it because I think the setting was really, really good. It's kind of like One by One by Ruth Ware, where it's set in an isolated ski lodge. Characters only have each other there, and they have to either lean on people who they don't trust or not trust anyone and stay isolated even more so than they are already. Love the setting. I enjoyed the writing style, but the snowboarding and skiing references, I just did not care. I don't care for sports or sports competitions, so 3 stars for that one, very middle of the road. Then I read Blood Air, which I really, really enjoyed. I bought this one last year, I think, but it's been on my wish list since it had the whole controversy surrounding it before it was released, and now I've given it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one. It's YA fantasy. It's based on the myth and rumours that surround Princess Anastasia, in that the fact that she may still be alive, which she's not. So this follows a main character called Anna, who has some magical gifts, and her family have been killed, pretty much all of them, and she is in hiding, but she has to go to a prison to talk to a prisoner there because apparently this prisoner can help her find the person who killed her dad. Did that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling a bit here. So she goes to this prison and then teams up with this guy. They have to escape the prison together, and then they have to go and find this alchemist who was working at the palace when her father was killed. It's a really fun fantasy adventure story. I am dying to read the sequels. I've actually got them on my Kindle, and I think I'm going to read them in May because I have a feeling I'm going to blast through this entire trilogy. It's a very quick and easy read. I liked the world building. There wasn't too much of it. I feel like the author could go more in depth, but she may be saving that for the sequels. I don't know. The characters won't really stand out. Anna and the love interest, whose name I can't even remember, Ramson, I don't know how I forgot that because it's a silly name. They had a bit of chemistry, but nothing too amazing, but I did really enjoy their banter for the most part, and I liked seeing them working together. There was a character introduced right at the end who I really enjoyed, who I hope to see more of in the sequels. I can't remember her name either, but she was pretty cool. And I really like the villain in this one as well. That doesn't often happen in YA. They remind me a bit of the villain in, this might spoil it, I don't think I can say, in another very popular YA fantasy series that I also enjoy, and I enjoyed thinking about the connections between them and making those comparisons. It was fun. So yeah, really enjoyed this one, gave it 4 stars, can't wait to carry on with the series. I'm glad I finally picked this one up. I then listened to The Woman They Couldn't Silence on audiobook. I actually received this one as an ebook from NetGalley, but I didn't get around to it before its release, so I listened to it on Audible instead, and this one was so freaking long. It's non-fiction about a woman who was sent to a mental institution by her husband. Her husband was a pastor. He didn't like what she was saying about their faith. She had some very different ideas to him. She was quite feminist in her ideas and he was absolutely not. So he had her basically imprisoned. And so this woman had to fight for years and years to gain her freedom again and to be reunited with her children. After she was released, she continued to fight for women's rights in regards to mental health and marriage and asylums and things. I gave it 3 stars because it did drag on. It's 14 hours long. I don't think it needs to be that long at all. It definitely could have been condensed. This is actually by the author of The Radium Girls, which I also listened to a few years ago now, and I really, really enjoyed that one. I loved that. But this one, I feel like she just waffled on quite a bit, and I feel like she could have wrapped things up a lot sooner. So I only gave this one 3 stars, but it's a very, very interesting real story, so I would encourage you to go and check it out and read more about this woman whose name I unfortunately can't remember. It's Elizabeth something because I suck at names. I then read as an ebook The Awakening, which I got from Kindle Unlimited. This is the first book in Zodiac Academy, and I had seen this brought up, I think on Reddit, because they were recommending books that you might enjoy if you liked, can't even remember, maybe Vampire Academy or something. And this was awful. This was one of the worst books I've read all year. I gave it 1 star. So basically this is about 2 twins who are orphaned. They are told that they are magical and they're fae, so they are taken to this different like realm, I suppose, the fae realm, and they're told that they have to attend this academy. They are descended from some previous rulers, and so they have to attend the academy to gain their powers, get their money, and then potentially take the throne. And this means that a lot of the fae who are already at the academy and who have been part of the ruling class for years now don't really like them because they've come in and they're kind of intruding. So the twins have to join different elemental houses and sort of work their way through the academy. And I think I made this sound a lot more interesting than it actually is. It was such a boring book, but not only was it boring, it was also quite offensive. So I think that this series has what is called a bully romance, in that when the twins joined the academy, I can't even remember their names now, all of the characters were absolutely awful to them, but I assume a lot of these characters are going to become love interests over the course of the series because it's a very long series and I imagine there's going to be like several different connections in there. But all of the characters were absolutely awful. There was a lot of pushing boundaries, there was a lot of breaking boundaries as well. The twins were actively saying no about some things, not necessarily sexual, but about like blood giving to the vampires, and the other characters just went ahead and did it anyway. So I didn't like that at all. I gave it 1 star, would not recommend, and I won't be carrying on with the series. Then I read The Castaways, which is an adult thriller. This one is about 2 sisters again, but it's much better than Zodiac Academy. So this one follows the 2 sisters. One is a journalist and one, I can't remember what her job is, to be honest, but the one whose job I can't remember, she gets on a plane. They're supposed to go on holiday together, but they have an argument the night before the plane takes off. The potentially jobless sister is on the plane when it crashes, and she has to survive on an island for a bit. A few years later, the journalist is still looking for her sister and trying to find out clues as to what happened on this plane, and then the pilot of the plane reappears. I think he shows up in Indonesia or something, and so she goes off to find out what actually happened and why the plane crashed. I thought it was a very good thriller. I really enjoyed it. It was very intense, and I love the island setting as well because you get the perspectives of both sisters. So you see the one who's looking into events from the past and the one who is living in the past as well, if that makes sense. So it was a very good thriller. I gave it 4 stars, would recommend it for a fast-paced read. Then I read You Exist Too Much, which is one that I bought this year. I gave this one 3 stars. I can't really tell you much of what it's about because it's basically just about this woman who is talking us through her life so far. I think she's only in her late 20s or early 30s. She is Palestinian American and she's also bisexual, and she has a lot of trauma in that she doesn't feel like she belongs to either culture. She also doesn't have a good relationship with her mother, and she is also dealing with her sexuality and also her relationships regarding it. So yeah, it was an interesting sort of, it felt almost like a stream of consciousness in that it kept going back and forth depending on what the character was remembering. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this one, apart from the things that I've already mentioned. There's racism, eating disorders, relationships with large age gaps, cheating, all sorts. It's actually quite a dark book, although it doesn't really feel very dark as you're reading it. I feel very middle of the road about this one. It was well written, I suppose, but I didn't really like the stream of consciousness way that it was written in, and I also didn't love the main character. Not that I think you necessarily have to, but I feel like I wanted to at least care about what happened to her because this whole book is about her. I wasn't really that bothered. So 3 stars for that one. Then I had some time while I was waiting for Quill in town, so I sat in the library and read The Deal of a Lifetime. This is like a 90-page book, if that. I can't actually remember what it says on the back of the book. I probably should have prepared for this, but it's basically about a guy who is dying and he is trying to rebuild his relationship with his son. Sort of. That was a really poor description, but I read it really quickly. I read it in just like under an hour and I gave it 3 stars because it was alright. I don't really have much to say about it. I then listened to another non-fiction book, and that was Evicted. So this is about poverty in America and the rental situation. I don't really know if it's called like a rental crisis or anything, and it particularly covers how landlords have the upper hand in America and how they keep people in poverty, and people who are renting can't catch a break and they really struggle through no fault of their own sometimes, and the system is basically broken and set up to help the landlord and not the renter. Tenant is the word that I was looking for. I gave this one 4 stars, really enjoyed it. I don't have much to say about it, but I would highly recommend you listen to it or read it. I would like to read something about this set in the UK because obviously I am in the UK, but it's interesting to read about the US in this case. I also read The Twyford Code, which I actually forgot about until just now. I gave this one 3 stars. It's basically a mystery story about a guy called Stephen Smith who has just been released from prison, and he's dictating voice notes to his son, who he hasn't raised or anything. He has just basically donated the sperm, and years ago he became obsessed with this thing called the Twyford Code, and now he's trying to sort of crack it. Something mysterious happened in his past, and he kind of gets all of his old schoolmates together because they were all in this class with this one teacher who was also interested in the code, and the book is basically told just in these dictation files, and you sort of, again, it's like a stream of consciousness thing, and you see like different voices, voice 1, voice 2, voice 3. There are a lot of awkward pauses. I thought that this was an interesting concept, and for the first 150 pages or so I was very, very intrigued, and I was trying to get really into it and crack the code myself. And then I started to get a little bit bored up until the very, very end when another character sort of gets involved. So I did only give it 3 stars. This wasn't as good as The Appeal, which was also by this author, and that was a shame because I was expecting amazing things considering the long break that the author took between these 2 books. But yeah, it just wasn't as good, so that's disappointing. I did like the unique style that it was written in. It's a very interesting concept, and the twists were very interesting right at the end when I actually got to them. But this middle bit here was just kind of boring. I was really bored of the idea by that point, so that's a shame. 3 stars for this one. And then I took part in Duo's 24-hour readathon, and I read 4 books for it, but I finished 1 in May, so because it took place from the 30th of April to the 1st of May. So the 3 that I finished in April, one was Every Last Secret by A.R. Torre. I listened to this as an audiobook. It's an adult thriller book, and it's set in a very rich neighbourhood. It follows 4 characters, but from the points of view of 2 wives. Kat is married to Will, and they're super rich, and Will owns his own company. Nina and Matt move into the neighbourhood. They move in next door to this other couple, and Nina joins Will's company, and then she starts going after Will. So Kat isn't very pleased, and because it follows their 2 perspectives, you sort of see the 2 of them going at each other and their perspectives with various scenes and various moments, either between them or between the husbands or between like all of them as a group. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I did only give it 3.5 stars because it wasn't amazing or anything, but it was an enjoyable thriller to listen to nonetheless. So I'm looking forward to reading more from A.R. Torre. I've actually already listened to or read The Girl in 6E, which I read years ago. I'd like to finish that series because that one was actually really, really good. But this one was good. I liked it. And then finally, the last 2 books that I read were The Deal and The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. These books have been going around BookTok a lot recently, and they have kind of migrated over to BookTube. I don't love them, to be honest. I gave the first book 4 stars because it was really, really enjoyable. These are new adult romance books, and the main guys in each of the books are a bunch of friends, and they're on the ice hockey team, and the female perspectives are girls who all go to the same university, and they're sort of all interlinked in some way. First book follows Hannah and Garrett, and I really, really liked them as a couple. Garrett was so lovely. Hannah was a really fun main character. Trigger warnings in this one for rape and domestic abuse, parental abuse. I found some of these scenes quite difficult to read, but I really liked the conclusion to everything. I thought it was quite well done, so I would recommend this one. However, The Mistake I gave 3 stars. This one follows Logan, one of Garrett's teammates, and another girl called Grace who goes to the university. I didn't really like these 2 as a couple. I feel like it was really rushed from the very beginning. I think they got together on the first couple of pages, and not only that, but this book also had some problematic elements in it. I talk about this a bit more in my vlog, but one of the things that I noticed was that Logan, the main character, made a very strange comment about a mixed race guy, about how he doesn't look Italian, and I just found it a bit uncomfortable to read. And I don't know if this book actually has more comments like that, and I just didn't notice them. But then I looked up the author on Twitter, and other people are saying that some of her comments and lines and scenes are quite problematic in a lot of her books. So I have actually carried on with this series. I've read the 3rd book in May as well because I already own it, and then I'm going to finish off the series as well because I have the 4th book. But I don't know if I'll check anything else out by this author. I just thought I would put it out there that people are saying that she is quite problematic and puts problematic things into her books. So if you want to go and look that up, then you definitely should before reading either of these. I would recommend The Deal. I wouldn't recommend carrying on with the series because it goes downhill from the first one. Okay, so that was my April wrap up, all 14 books that I read. I'm having a really good time in May already, and I'm expecting my May wrap up to be just as long as this one. I've been talking for 25 minutes now and my jaw is starting to really hurt. My battery is running out, so it's definitely time to wrap this up. Thank you for watching this video. I had such a great time in April, and I can't wait to see what May brings. Let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments below. Tell me how many books you read in April. I would be very interested to know. Thank you again for watching, and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!